All right, so first on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody has a flag at home, you can stand and say the pledge too. We can do that. All right. There you go. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag,
United
the
States
United
of America,
States of America,
to the republic
the
for
republic
which it stands,
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under
indivisible,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty.
with liberty
and
and
justice.
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thanks everybody for participating in that. So public comment, we have a public comment session right now. If there's anyone in the public who would like to speak, if you could use the Zoom functions at the bottom of your screen, raise your hand, send a message in chat. We'll get to you. We'll give you a minute to figure out where that is and how to do that. With the last minute change here, I know there wasn't necessarily time for everybody to sign up. We've got some people in the public comment who are going to speak to a field trip, but that will do that separately. So if anybody wants to make a public comment, either raise your hand and Paul will see you and turn your microphone on, or you can send something through through the chat and we'll see you. I see about 10 people over there. Anybody interested, Paul?
Sorry, not seeing anything.
Okay. If something does come through, if somebody was having some technical difficulty and later on we catch them, I think for tonight we can make an exception if we'll see how it goes. But next up, communications. Anybody got any communications from anyone? I saw Jess sent something through. We'll talk about that during the budget part, but any communications from anybody? All right, so I don't hear any.
Wait,
So-
Mike, sorry,
Yeah.
I was on mute.
Yeah.
So Carol and I had the pleasure of attending the student council meeting at BES. And then we also went to the PTO meeting. And there were, I thought there was one point that came up, questions. And I said I would talk to you and the policy subcommittee. People were wondering about policy on devices in the elementary school, such as Apple Watches, or I guess they make these VTech watches. The kids can message and record and do TikToks. I feel so old saying this because I don't know, but I guess there's other devices besides your phone
Besides the phone,
that
okay.
kids are using in the classrooms. I don't know if teachers are seeing this, but it was a parent, right, Carol, that brought this up. And he was just wondering what the policy was on that, and if it's a school-wide policy or if it's school by school as to what's allowed in the classroom.
Mhm. Carol, do you know off the top of your head quickly an answer for that?
I don't think.
I didn't at the time. We were gonna look into that, so I don't know what the series. I don't know if any of the admin team has run across that situation in their classrooms.
All right, we can take that to the policy committee then, and we'll look into it. We'll look and see what MASC has. And we'll
Yeah,
take
for all
that
these
up.
different devices.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, definitely just as distracting as a phone, I guess. All right, so we'll take that to the policy subcommittee meeting, which will be, we don't have a date yet, but it will be soon in February. We will have one in February. Okay. So next up, we're going to go a little bit out of order from what the agenda says. I apologize for everyone. We have guests here from our police departments, safety committees, and we're going to do part of Carol's report from section 6. I think we're going to focus on number 1 and 2, 1 and 2, the crisis team shelter in place debrief, and then I think the improving communications at Tohoto kind of goes hand in hand with that. So we might as well bring that up at the same time, whatever comes of that. So the only thing I'm going to ask the committee members and everybody else, when we start to talk about the event, the shelter in place event, just keep in mind that there may or may not be, I don't know the answer to this, but there may or may not be a continuing investigation going on in that. So if you do have any details around the police activity from that, if you would mind just not sharing those and keeping that to yourself, just out of respect for all the families involved. We want to focus this conversation on what happened at the schools in reaction to it and see what can come from that, from hearing what we have to say for the schools. So if you got any details around that, we don't need to share them. But other than that, Carol, you want to take it?
Sure. Hi, good evening. I'm fortunate enough to have with us tonight the two police chiefs, John Annunziata from Boylston and Eric Schartner from Berlin. Our fire chief Boylston, John Flanagan, and our resource officer over in Berlin, Dave Goulding, who's also known as Goody to all of us. So I asked them to join the evening to provide the public with a chance to ask questions regarding the shelter in place procedures that we used that particular day in February, and also to talk about some of the concerns that unfolded in two meetings that we had after that incident on May 13th. One was an immediate debrief that we had, that was the next day. And we also had a meeting that was our annual meeting on February 2nd. We invited for really the first time, we had our two DPW supervisors there with us, Fred Cumming and Steve Merrow. The reason we're inviting them now is they're very much a part of the planning that we're using, planning that we're creating as far as emergencies that we need. They may need to be responsible for blocking roads so that our children can exit safely out of the buildings. And so it's really important. So any other conditions of facing any kinds of chemical spills, any kinds of hazards on the roadway. So we've included them now into our criting. And so it's been really, I think, beneficial to have them there and add their input. I'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes about what we found out through that very other day. Right now, with the crisis team on board, I think one of the major issues that we came up with, again, was the lack of communication that occurred as a result of the inability of the cell phones to be used in the location in and around the Tohoto area, inability of radios to communicate with one another. And we've been really trying to brainstorm together how to approach the towns helping us with this very serious dilemma. So I'm going to ask, I don't know if one of the chiefs wants to speak first, and just address it from what you experienced that day.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm John Annunziata, I'm the Boylston Police Chief. So communication in both schools, specifically Tohoto, has always been limiting. The town's taken some steps to increase our radio coverage in Tohoto, but the way our police radios work, they have to operate off of a device called a repeater. So a few years back, a repeater was installed at Tohoto that gave us a little bit more coverage inside the school, but it didn't achieve what we hoped to. Now that's just for our mobile radios that we carry on our person. That doesn't do anything with cell phone coverage. At our last crisis meeting, Superintendent Merrill from the Highway Department informed the committee that the Boylston Municipal Light Department has rented out pole space to Verizon, and their plan is to put 5G antennas, I guess you would call them, on I think it's every third pole or every second pole, but some variation. And we're hoping that this is going to increase some cell phone reception at the school. But unfortunately, this is going to be kind of a trial by fire, so to speak, where we're not going to know how it impacts the cell phone coverage until it's actually up and functioning.
Can I ask what the timeline on that or estimated is?
It's estimated to be about a few months.
Yeah, Jessica, go ahead.
We believe it's gonna. They're beginning the work on it now. it should be a few months, and it should be active, is to my understanding.
Yeah, just to follow up on Chief Annunziata's information, we actually met with the light department company, Superintendent Mark Barakian, this past Friday, Paul and Nancy and myself. And he talked about putting the antennas up on these telephone poles. They're going to start at Tohoto and run all the way down Route 70. He said about 5 to 6 feet apart, the poles are. They're hoping that they think right now it's just going to link to Verizon phones, but they're hoping in the future that they'll be allow more carriers to get on board with this. As John said, they don't know, he didn't know when they were going to start, but they're preparing right now. So it should be, as he said, within a couple of months, and we should get that. Most likely, we got a follow-up report that this will work. They're hoping around Tohoto, the outside, but it's still not going to necessarily address, the cells will be too weak to address the interior of the building. So that's another to deal with.
Yeah, so during a few different drills that has been an issue is inside. If you connect to the Wi-Fi, you can obviously utilize your phone, but then outside you can't use it because there's no service out there. And then there are times where when you are inside, you either have to reconnect the Wi-Fi, so it's showing to be unreliable. And as the school superintendent, just informed you that these 5G antennas are hoping to help outside, but it's unclear if it's going to do anything at all inside.
Paul, I don't know if I'm sorry, I just shut my profile off because I understand that going in and out for all of you. I'm hoping that this works out better, that sound better. But we also had a chance to meet with, we had a Zoom with another company that their consulting group that gave us an estimate of what it would cost to put the repeaters in properly inside the building. So Paul, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I can give a rough estimate of the cost, but if you wanted to mention the firm and what they found out for us.
So the company's called RSRF. They specialize in providing solid cell signal within buildings. They're nationwide. They have some experience with schools. They are carrier agnostic, so as long as they can get a cell signal into the building, they can basically provide what amounts to saying they'll have 3 or 4 bars on your phone in all areas of the building. And so, yeah, I think we're going to have to wait and see how well, and they would also wait and see, because they come out and do a full on-site survey to see what areas are weak, what areas need that boost the most, and then make sure that when they leave, coverage in the building is near 100%.
Paul, I'm sorry, did you give the estimate for the?
I did not. So they based off of I sent some floor plans, and again, until they do a complete site survey, they're going off of kind of history of what a building of our size and structure being like steel and concrete would be. But it's estimated at close to $170,000, and there would be additional costs to run power and internet to some of those drops. And so it would probably range somewhere in between another 30 to 40. So somewhere in a total of around $200,000 to $210,000. But that would guarantee 100%. And again, they basically don't leave at that point until every area is covered.
Did anyone else want to add on to or have any questions about next steps with that? We're trying to decide what direction we want to go, or any input that you would suggest for us?
Carol, if I can add Joe Flanagan, the fire chief. There's a requirement within the International Building Code that you have what are called bidirectional antennas in buildings. So every commercial building has to have a bidirectional antenna, and that supports public safety. It doesn't necessarily support cell service. It has nothing to do with cell service, but it supports the UHF radio frequencies that we would use, what public safety would use when they're in the building. That's actually it's much less than 200,000. It's not going to, but again, it has nothing to do with cell service, but it will at least bring the public safety aspect of it up so that we can, because right now we can't, as you all know, we can't use any of our portable radios inside the school unless we have one of our fire department vehicles parked outside that has a repeater in the vehicle. That's the only way we can actually transmit any kind of radio traffic, back to our dispatch center from the school. The police department doesn't have any capability to do that right now, but hopefully when our new system is up and running, we'll have a little better reach with the new UHF system. But without that bidirectional antenna in the school, that's still going to be a challenge for us.
Joe, is that going to be part of the system that's going up right now? That antenna, is that what the antenna?
No, that unfortunately that was something that was supposed to be put into the school when it was built, but it was taken out of the budget, I believe, at the last minute, as many other things were, as you know, when the building was built.
So I'm thinking probably our next steps are to figure out how to afford to get that antenna in our building or on our building. Is that correct?
From the public safety side, absolutely. But again, that's not going to, that will have nothing to do with your upgrading your cell service. So they're kind of apples and oranges.
Yeah. I think the cell phone service outside of Tohoto will be beneficial for parents receiving messages. We had a lot of parents who did not get the school messenger message that came through because their cell phones were not working in that area. And right now, this will help the Verizon customers, but we're hoping in the future that they will allow other providers to jump onto the system, and then we can open up that farther, I think, for other carriers and other families who don't have Verizon. But it'll be a help, but it definitely isn't solving the problem at this point.
Carol, I have a question. Would that be extended network for other people with other carriers?
I think it would be, Jessica. I'm not so sure. Paul, do you know the answer to that?
I don't, and Mark from Boylston Light was going to try to get answers for that from the Verizon rep.
Yeah, we're waiting for that.
Can I ask one question? So there's two issues here. There's the cell service and then there's the radios for the safety departments inside the school. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so are these being explored as one project together, or is one taking priority over the other? It would seem to me that they both should receive that equal attention. I might even lead more toward the safety than the cell service. I don't know, but I would definitely say, I would say that the safety aspect needs to be given the attention also.
Yeah, I agree. It's it's important, obviously, for the responding units, whether it's police, fire, EMS, to be able to communicate. But as we discovered, it's equally important that staff themselves can communicate from inside to the outside. So I do agree they both need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a priority over the other. I think they're both equal priority.
Okay, thank you.
So the issue with the repeater is just that it's so expensive. It would be another $200,000 into the budget to do that immediately. But we could get the repeaters quickly and get that up and running quickly if we had the money, if we had unlimited funds, we could do that. Paul, is that what I'm hearing?
Their timeline is probably roughly 2 months, 2 to 3 months. It depends upon what they run into with the carriers and what they've. Also really depends upon if that signal at least coming in is strong enough to get something to the building, which you would think, since kids do make calls and adults do make calls from time to time, there's enough signal there. If that doesn't happen, then they have to figure out how to hardwire that into the building, and that would potentially take longer. Because they'd have to then negotiate with Verizon and the various carriers how to get basically a wired signal off of their last pole or antenna to our building. They didn't think that was going to happen, but again, until they get on site and actually do an on-site survey, they're not going to know that.
The other piece I think we came to the conclusion of when we were together is we can't do this within our own budgets. This is a matter of bringing the town into this to support us and funding these projects. So that's a discussion that we're going to have to go forward with the town of Boylston to help us with that, or to look for grant funding to be able to do that somehow. So we definitely want to fix this issue. I don't know what else to say. It's imperative we fix this issue going on right now, but and it's been existing. What Joe said, this was cut years ago. So I think what we're probably looking for right now is to think about this as a committee and all of us and to guide us in the direction you want us to take in pursuing this solution.
Do we have any idea how much a bi-directional antenna would cost in Tohoto, or I don't, we probably have to get estimates.
Yeah, I think you're, just based on what's going on in other buildings in town right now, you're probably looking at the $10,000 to $20,000 range. Not a lot of money, as opposed to the $200,000 for the cell service anyway.
Anybody else have any other questions for them to add or ask away? Yeah.
Can I-
Oh, Rudy, yeah.
I just want to address the school committee. Listening to Chief Flanagan and Chief Nunzio talk about communication. I'm paid by the town of Berlin, so I'm going to speak as an outsider that I see the signs up and down Route 70 that say you love your police and fire, but it's obvious the communication system in the town itself is not up to par and needs some work. I know there's plans out there. I know there's some resistance. I would think the school committee, for safety reasons, would be passionate about supporting public safety as they move forward for the safety of our children and our staff. As far as the word communication, I don't want parents hearing this mishmash. We communicate as a group, sometimes daily, weekly, and passionately on all these issues. So we're constantly communicating among ourselves. The problem is the radio system for public safety does not work, and Boylston needs to make improvements to come up to the timeline to have the safety there. So before you commit to spending a lot of money, look at the big picture that's proposed for antennas and things in Boylston to support them. We're going through a major upgrade in Berlin and spending a lot of money to meet our public safety needs. And it's going to be expensive, but what we do on the public safety end is going to benefit the schools also. So I just want to be clear that we communicate daily sometimes, but the real problem is the infrastructure in the existing Boylston communication system. And they were very kind. They didn't really say bad about it, but I'm going to say it needs work and it needs public support. And you as school committee, even though that's not in your lane, should be supporting anything that would help improve communication in all your buildings.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. I know things coming up in the budget, things coming up in our plan. We've talked about this a lot. A lot of members, all the members are pretty passionate about it. So I think we are going to try to push and get this looked at. You know, we're working on the budget now. We have certain requests. I was 5 minutes before this meeting, I was going over changes to those requests. So it's in process, and I think adding this in there, changing some of the things. I know there's some folks from those town committees that are on watching us right now, and so hopefully they've heard you. And when it comes time for the budget, the budget for the school committee only can accept or reject the budget that the schools recommend. We don't actually get to force anybody to pay for it. It still has to go to the town voters. So town's
Correct.
gonna vote for it if it's there, and I definitely agree. If there's nobody else that has anything to say or any other questions for everyone, I'd like to say thank you both to Berlin and Boylston Fire and Police and everybody else that came around on that particular day. I know for a fact you communicate because I was talking with Carol, and several times she said, "Oh, I gotta go. We've got something coming in, something's going on. We're gonna talk. I'll give you a call back." And she was communicating with me, and I was communicating with the committee. You guys were communicating with her. It didn't involve what it involved, but pretty nerve-wracking period of time there, and it did get all worked out. So thank you guys for that. Thank you for keeping the schools safe, keeping everyone inside the schools calm, even though there may have been some confusion going on around outside and things were up in the air for a little bit. The kids ultimately were safe. The teachers, the staff were doing what they're supposed to. From what I understand, the training that you go through, the meetings that you have, it was put into practice, and it was done well. So there are always things that we can learn from any event. Why didn't we see this coming? Maybe we should have done this. Maybe we'll do this next time, whatever those are. I know you're working on them, but I really do appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time to come here tonight and talk to us about it. Second time in several months, well, going back almost a year now, but that you've come and talked to us about this stuff, and we're going to try to work on it.
Yeah, thank you. And, I want to recognize the superintendent's office, the Boylston Elementary School, Tohoto, and Berlin Memorial School. It was really incredible to see what we've been working on for so long go into, go into action. Everyone did a fantastic job, and what we've been working on really came together. So I really want to acknowledge everyone involved in that.
We really appreciate it, and definitely thank you. If nobody else has any other questions, we'll close this topic and move on to the agenda. You guys are welcome to stay and hang out and listen and watch us, or we understand if you have to go and take care of other things as well. So don't be, we won't be offended if you do sign off. Yes, Officer Goody, I see you there.
At the last meeting I attended with you, I got excited when you said, release the principals. Are we going to get the same thing? It was like we were at the Coliseum, and I got all excited. So I've been waiting for that when we're done. And let me,
release.
can I just finish? Can I finish with the Boylston residents? I just want to be clear. I can't speak for Chief Shartner, but I would take every of the men and women in public safety in Boylston, and I'd steal them over to Berlin. They're wonderful. We work together with them, and we'd give them the communication equipment they need. They're really talented, along with your whole school staff. So.
Yeah, really, and that speaks to what we're talking about on the school committee with the 4 schools, the 3 buildings, the 2 towns. Since 2019, becoming a single region, we're still so new and so young at this, but we're talking about this idea of one district, right? We're not 2 towns, we're not 2 police forces, we're not 4 buildings, we're 1 school district. And the idea that police in both towns work together and communicate, and fire and emergency services and all of them, it really speaks to that idea of community in that one district that we're trying to push. So that's awesome. Thank you. And I will say, release the officers. release the track.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was thinking, Mike, as you said that, there is a lot of love and respect in this group. We work together as a single team, and we really try to problem solve to help one another in the towns. It's not just, Boylston helps Boylston. We help one another. So that's really hugely important. And we saw that unfold that particular day. And we continue to improve. We continue to look at these issues, including this issue with communication, and really try to problem solve. We want to fix this issue, and we're all on board, and we want to do a way that it's going to make a difference now and in the future. And so, we're open to suggestions to us to make that happen. So it's been a great experience to work with these gentlemen. So I
Okay.
apologize. I'm gonna, kind of know what I look like. I mean, there I am, but I'm gonna leave this off in order to communicate better with you, and I'll come back on again afterward, but I just want to make sure, more importantly, you hear me. So I hope, I'm sorry if this is comfortable, but I'd rather have you hear me than stare at me and not hear me.
Yeah, no, it has been a little better since you turned it off, yeah.
Okay, good. So, note to self, I'll probably have to stay at the office, I guess, from now on. I
Well-
wanted to mention the second part of my report, just food for thought for the school committee. I thought since, we're a relatively new group with one another, that we might want to think about a possible retreat day this summer, a chance for us to get together, myself and all the school committee members, to get to know one another a little better on a personal level, to get to talk about perspectives, where we're coming from with our thinking, just share some time with one another. I had a chance to talk with Dr. Anthony Bent, who was my superintendent in Shrewsbury for many years, and then I worked with him afterward. He was my facilitator for the Assistant Superintendent Leadership Seminar for many years. He actually came to speak and work with the administrative team several years back on leadership and building strong cultures. And I've traveled with him. That's when I went to Finland. He ran that GS21 group. I spoke with him recently, and he said he would be very willing to join us for a day and really sit down with the group and talk about the role of school committees, how we go about communicating our ideas, getting to know one another. And he also said prior to getting together, he would meet with each individual school committee member and ask some questions, like spend a little time with each one of you and get to know you and find out what's important to each one of you so that he can bring that back to the table for everyone. So I guess I wanted to mention that. I'm going to do that with my admin team. We usually have a retreat in the summer anyway. It's anywhere from, I think it's ranged from 1 to 3 days. Part of that is a crisis meeting, but I am going to take a portion of that retreat this year to just bring us together. We'll have new admin on the team. And I think that before we launch into the business, we have to get to know one another as human beings and build relationships with one another. So just putting that out to you. I don't know if you have thoughts on it now, or do you want to have me find out more information or not, I guess.
I love the idea, Carol, and Dr. Bent was the superintendent when I was going through Shrewsbury Public Schools. I remember him. I still remember what he looks like. And I just think that's awesome that that you have that connection with somebody who's been in this world for so long, is willing to work with us. Cause I completely agree. I think a lot of the faces on here were not the faces that we were working with last year. So I think it's worthwhile to spend time to work together as a team and have a retreat. And the summer is a perfect time, besides the fact that most of us have little kids and they're at home. But as long as we plan ahead, I think it'll be great.
Excellent. So I think we'll keep working on that, figuring out what we can do, how long it will be, what dates it will be. We'll bring it up at the next meeting, maybe the next couple meetings. We'll work on it between meetings. As far as Carol working on it to see what an agenda might look like, things like that. But I think the committee is probably interested and intrigued. So does anybody else, Lori or Julie or Jess, do you have anything to say on that?
I think it's a great idea. I know summer camps registration of March 1st.
Yeah.
So the sooner we schedule it, the better.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. All right. Carol, that actually took care of your whole report.
Well,
Unless you have something else.
there's one very important piece of information that I need to share with all of you tonight, and I'm very happy to do that. We've been very busy behind the scenes, starting up our interview committees. Our first interview committee actually handled the position of curriculum director 6 through 12, and that person was interviewed. We did that as an internal search. And lo and behold, our new curriculum director, 6 through 12, is Sally Stuckles, who is joining us tonight, serving currently as the interim principal of Tohoto. Sally announced this to her staff this afternoon, who looked at her with, I don't know, mixed emotions. But she assured them that she would still be working with them in a different capacity. This has always been Sally's strong desire to serve in this role in school districts. She's very excited to start. She obviously, Sally's been with us for 6 years. She was 6 years as the Tohoto assistant principal, and now this year as the adjunct. But most importantly, through that time, I've worked closely with Sally. She is dedicated to the district. She has worked so hard over the past several years to make connections with all of us, from her staff to all of us at central office. There isn't any day that I haven't asked Sally to do something and then she hasn't gotten back to me to let me know she's taking care of it, or has a few other questions to ask me to make sure that what we need is what gets taken care of. I mentored her when she was going for her assistant superintendent licensure. So she does have that already in place, and she's actively involved in so much of our curriculum work. So I'm very proud and thrilled to have Sally now moving into this position. And now I have to clean my office and get ready for her to start July 1st. So that's my report.
Congratulations.
Excellent. Yes, definitely congratulations.
Thank you.
If I look a little confused, it's because all my screens here just shut down, and I'm trying to figure out where they all went. Which kind of brings me to the next point. Paul, do we have any? We said we'd give the public a chance to jump on late in case they were having any issues. Has anybody, Paul, can you tell if anybody has asked anything?
There was just one question about why this was a Zoom versus in-person meeting when there were in-school or in-person activities for the kids, but that was the only question.
Okay, yeah, I can answer that. Sure, Jamie. Earlier today, a request came in based on some events that were happening tonight, the weather, and the decision was made to, for that person's peace of mind, to have it by Zoom. It was a decision we made. I think Carol, we talked about, does this impact any of the kids, any of the schools, any of the buses? And the decision was that no, they could operate as usual. We didn't have to cancel anything. We didn't have to cancel games, trips, buses, half day or anything. It was more a late night thing. Usually our meetings, and especially tonight, we're doing an executive session. Those, when we get into an executive session, those sometimes last till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, which is when it's supposed to get, I guess the roads are going to be a little more dangerous later than they were this afternoon. So that's why we made the decision. I think it worked out as a bit of a blessing because we had the emergency personnel here tonight, and I think we're able to reach more people. To be quite frank, nobody really ever comes to the meetings in person. Maybe we get 1 or 2 people there to watch, and I see 15 on right now watching in real time. So I don't know how many people watch the stream, but I know based on what I'm going to give as a report later on, I know a lot of people sometimes complain about the stream. They can't hear us, they can't see us. So hopefully this will actually give you a better idea. But I do agree, government meetings, local government meetings like this, the more in person we can have, the better. Gives people a chance to come and talk to us, even if, in finance, they say past performance is no indicator of future results. So maybe in the future, we will get a bigger crowd, who knows? But based on past performance, we just simply made the decision tonight to help with a few requests that came in from some people. So that's why we're here. Hopefully it goes smoothly for the rest of the night. Looks like my screens are back up. So if you give me a second, I can find my place. We have to backtrack a little bit and take care of a little business before we go forward. We're going to do the consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So
That
moved.
was Julie. And second?
Second.
All right, we have to do a roll call vote because we're online. So, Megan,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
and I as well, so the consent agenda will pass. Next up, we have our reports on the agenda, but again, there's some people in the audience here to speak about one of our items up for vote. So Julie, who is here to speak on the Nature's Classroom vote?
Hi, so we have Karen in the audience and Lawrence.
All right, Paul, can you let them speak?
I'm adding them now. Karen.
Yeah.
And Lawrence.
I see Lawrence is in. She's on mute though. Karen's in, also on mute. Lawrence, I see you're unmuted, so if you want to start.
Yeah, here I'm just gonna start my video.
There
There
you
we go.
Hi, Lauren.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lawrence Holyoke. I'm a mother of 3 kids at BMS, and we're here just seeking your approval for the Nature's Classroom trip that will take part in May. And did you guys see the permission slip that went out?
Yeah, we saw that. Yeah.
Okay, and if anybody has any questions about the program, like, we're happy to answer those.
Can you just give us a brief rundown of what exactly Nature's Classroom does for people that are online that might not be familiar?
Yeah, sure. So the kids would go for 4 days and 3 nights. And it's to get the kids out of the classroom and get them into the forest and the woods and studying nature, science, in a really hands-on experience. I actually got to go to Nature's Classroom when I was a kid, so I know what a wonderful experience it is. And the other reason why I think this particular opportunity is so important is that it's the first time the Berlin and Boylston kids are going to meet up and be together. And I think if they can form some friendships and bonds with each other before they all go into Tohoto, where they're all going to be, they're all going to be in school together next year. And I think it's a great opportunity for them to really form some friendships and get to know each other before then.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for them? We're going to vote on this as part of business items to vote on approving this. The reason the committee has to vote on it because I believe it's an overnight trip. That's our policy. It's an overnight field trip, so the committee needs approval. But all the paperwork it looks like is in there. Was it John that signed that? Was that Buffalo Chicken Scratch there, I guess? All right. But yeah, if anybody has any questions for Lawrence, go ahead and ask.
I'm so glad to see he's come back. As a Boylston elementary person, once upon a time, it was also great to meet the Berlin kids before we started. So thank you for all of you for spearheading that.
Yeah, I mean, I can discuss the importance of it. I did it a couple years back in 6th grade, and I think especially it really helps with our message of, we are one school district. Like, I remember when I first came to Tohoto, I came from outside of both districts, and there was almost like a rivalry between the districts. Like, it was like you either become a Boylston kid or you become a Berlin kid, and they don't intermingle. And I feel like once we went on the Nature's Classroom trip and we were like, able to kind of be in a less, structured school environment, we were able to actually, see that they're not the enemy almost, but it really helped us like actually bond as like a class and not just 2 elementary schools coming together. And I think that's really important. And I know like it taught me so much. Like, I learned what an invasive species was there, like, and it does it through fun ways. That kind of, it's a very hands-on learning. So, it's not like reading from a textbook, but they still, you do some fun things, but it's very much centered in learning. So it's not like going to a summer camp. It's like you're in school and they bring summer camp activities to you. So it's definitely more of a school centered thing than it is more like, let's go on a trip type thing.
Caroline, I think what you say about the two towns coming together, that rivalry, the bonding issue. I mean, I know I believe the group is just a small group compared to the size of the class, but you mentioned the one being one district idea again, and if we can find things like this to further that idea or that goal, I think the committee would definitely be supportive of it. So we're gonna vote on that later during our business items, but thank you, Lawrence and Karen, for coming and talking to us about it in case we did have any questions. If anybody has any questions for the vote, ask now. I think maybe there's probably plenty of people on here who could answer them later if need be, but all right. I'm getting some head nods, so all right. Thank you, Lawrence.
Ladies, I'm gonna try to put you back as attendees, but you may get dropped. I apologize if that happens, but you should be able to get back in.
Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to reports. Speaking of Caroline, do you want to give us a report?
Yes. Here, let me just pull up what I have. But yeah, there hasn't been too much going on since the last meeting. There was definitely a huge focus on midterms, and that kind of steered some of the extracurriculars and that stuff away, just because people tend to, just really focus in on the midterms. But there has been like a lot of drives throughout the school, whether that be clothes, animal supplies, or food. There's been many drives throughout all the grade levels. I know that there is a lot of excitement around the exhibitions. There's a lot of, because those are starting this week, the performances. So there's a lot of talk about how people are very excited for that. And I think it's a great way to, both for some of the younger kids to see like information presented in more of like a fun, creative way. And for the seniors, it's really, a good experience that will show them how to, like manage their time and not have specific like written instructions. You have to make things yourself, and I think that's a really good opportunity for people to transition into the after high school life. The musical is going pretty well. We have actually the owner of Jazzy Acts as our choreographer, so it's nice that we have some outside help, and it's trucking along. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And the high school student council winter ball was last weekend, and although there were significantly fewer ticket sales than we were expecting, and it was up in the air whether it would happen or not, we did have a good 9th grade turnout. And I think they had pretty fun. There was bake sale, karaoke, and dancing, and you can definitely see there was some fun on those kids' faces. Sadly, 9th grade was like the only grade that was really like represented. So we're still trying to pinpoint exactly why the kids who were COVID affected in high school are the ones who are showing the least school involvement. So that's something we're going to try and focus on in the student council. But yeah, students are looking forward to. Yes.
Could you repeat that? It broke up here a little bit for me. I want to make sure.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was
Lori
just
was
saying
able to
that we've noticed that the kids who went through COVID are really especially in high school are lacking the almost like school spirit, I guess, than previous kids and kids coming up. And I mean, I think it is because, really like that isolated culture that was kind of created, that mindset. But yeah, we're looking at student council in the high school to try and like find ways to try and help that, because we definitely noticed that it's been a problem with, the kids who were affected by COVID.
When you say affected by COVID, do you mean they actually came down with COVID, or just they were?
No,
in school
like just
when-
like, everyone had to come out of school and everything. And I think it's created just kind of like, it's been harder for kids to kind of like get into like the community spirit and school spirit. And so I think that's something that student council in high school is working on.
Can I add a comment to that?
Yes,
Mhm.
I think the comment is worth exploring, and I'm glad that you're looking at that, how you said that kids are continuing to isolate. And it resonates with me because of what Carol said last night at the PTO meeting, on potentially changing the after-school schedule to accommodate clubs. This would be for next year, right
Mhm.
after school, and to push the sports back. So that way these kids have that social place to be, they have that social environment, and that all can be fostered. So I think
Yeah,
that that's nice.
Yeah, I just think it's like it's almost apparent, like sometimes in classes, people will be like, oh, here, have a minute to talk, like after you've done like a hard test or something, and people won't talk. It will just be
Yeah.
dead silent. And it's like, I don't know, it's very like kind of crazy just to like walk into a room and then it's just like complete silence when it used to be like bubbling, talking. So yeah, I definitely think that's something that needs to probably be addressed, is how to, bring back the social community aspect of kids. So I think doing activities that and prioritizing activities that help foster that community spirit would be an important topic in the future, an important part.
Caroline,
Yeah.
can you remind me, you're a senior now, right?
Yes, I'm a senior.
So when COVID started, the spring of 2020, you were a freshman?
I was a freshman. So yeah, so I mean,
So you've
me
experienced
personally,
all of high school post-COVID.
I haven't had a full like normal year of high school, but
Yeah.
so I've definitely noticed people like, and I've been talking to people in my grade, and they still feel like they're kind of the freshman deer in headlights, and like they're kind of scared that like they're going to be pushed out into the world still. They're like kind of like they still have the freshman mentality. Like a lot of kids have told me that they still feel like socially the way they were when COVID started. So
So never really truly recovered. That's social
yeah,
aspect
so
of it.
like people like just I've talked to even like people in middle school, and they still feel like they are like 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 almost socially and mentally the kids they were before COVID started. Feels like it was almost like a pause in time, and it's like they got like jump cut to where they are now.
That I think I agree with Julie. I mean, these events, these activities that we're talking about, part of the district plan, part of the budget that we're pushing, includes all this stuff. So the buses for the after school activities, the additional staff, the additional teachers to take over the overburdened courses, spread them out a little bit more so teachers have more time to get involved. The additional behavioral therapists and special ed coordinators and all those positions that we're asking for, that, to be quite honest, we're starting to hear some pushback on them and questioning, why do you need them? And the message we're trying to put out there is exactly what Caroline just said, because we need it. You don't understand what this reaction to COVID did to kids. I mean, I experienced it with my young kids. They started kindergarten during this, and it's like Caroline said, she has not had a normal year of high school yet. My kids, second graders right now, have not had a normal year of school, period. Hopefully, knock on wood, we get to the end of this year and it's a full normal year, but really it's still not. So I think these things that we're asking for in the budget, and I'm looking at who's still online, and I think Jamie's gone, but hopefully he'll see the recording, because he's one of the people that are going to be heavily involved in this conversation in the next few weeks of the budget. These budget items that we're putting in here for the extra staff, the extra curriculum, the extra courses, the new courses, the portrait of a graduate, all this stuff is to help exactly what Caroline just described to us. So hopefully when we start talking about this in the community, these stories and these ideas and these reasons resonate with people, I think. Thank you very much, Caroline. I think that was a very good
Thank you.
report. Okay, next up is my report, actually, the chair's report. And I don't have much to say tonight other than one bit of news for the community. So we currently have, I'm just going to read the statement that I wrote here. We currently have an open seat from the Berlin side on the committee to fill. Bob Holmes has offered his resignation effective January 20th is what he made it. So anyone interested in filling the seat should send a resume and a letter of interest to the committee by March 1st. We'll then have the candidates come into our next meeting, which is March 7th, and to go through an interview. All of us here, except for Jess, know exactly what that process is like because we were all appointed at one time or another before this election. So that's what we'll do. But speaking of the election, since it is so soon after the election, we just had our first election for this first regional school committee. It was supposed to be in 2020. It got delayed to 22. It happened. Here we are. It was in November. So during that run up to that election, the community posed several questions to the 7 candidates for the committee, and we were asked to answer them. First in a forum, it didn't work out, but to record ourselves answering them and to provide them. So I wanted to ask the committee if you think it would be appropriate to ask anyone who's interested in filling that seat if they would answer those same questions. Not live in the interview, it would probably take too much time. They don't have to go through the process of recording themselves, but we're asking them to submit a resume and a letter of interest. So as part of that letter, they could just give a brief answer to those questions. Is that something you think would be appropriate? Lori's
say-
shaking her head yes.
I'd say brief. I think, yeah, if they could, I think some of those questions are important. So I think, yeah, if they want to, no, I would definitely in writing, it doesn't have to be presented.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a lot.
Yeah, so the thinking would be they would write it in their letter that they would submit to us by March 1st. We would have it in the drive with all our other documents that we've reviewed before the meeting.
Yeah.
Then we would have our interviews. We're not going to go over all these questions in the interview. We already have the information. And then we just ask, 1 or 2 questions each is what we've done in the past during the interview. And but I figured, and I'm only suggesting this since it is only 2 months after the election, or 3 months at this point. Those are the questions the community wanted to ask the candidates back then. So I think it's only fair if the next candidate answers the same. But if you guys disagree, I'm not going to hold anybody to it.
I think the questions are fine. I think if you're not going to review them during the meeting, I think it would be great if we could have hyperlinks to their answers.
Yeah,
So-
they would be public documents, so we could do that. Yeah.
Also, Mike, does this person have to be a Berlin resident?
Yes, thank you for saying that. Yes, has to be a Berlin resident and registered voter, is my understanding. A registered voter in Berlin. That's the requirement to be on the school committee. Yes. So a resident and a registered voter makes you a resident in Berlin. So. And I believe there's an age requirement of 18 or older, I believe. All right, so then that's agreed. So we'll ask for that. What we'll do is we'll put this up on the school committee bbrsd.org website, social media, and Carol, I'm going to ask if you might send it out in the next newsletter. Send it out to the town clerks as well. Was that someone saying something?
That was me just saying, yes, sure, I will take
Okay.
care of that, Mike.
All right, so we'll do that. We'll ask for them by March 1st because our next meeting is March 7th. And with the way the weekend falls, I think that gives us a few days to review everything. March 1st, I think, is what, Wednesday. So, all right, moving on from that. We have subcommittee reports. Megan, budget, facilities, and safety.
Yeah, so a few things. We Carol and Nancy have been, first off, I want to say on behalf of all the parents in this community, they have been working like dogs on this budget, presenting it, traveling around to all the different meetings, and just absolutely going over and above. So thank you. I think at the PTO meeting, someone said to Carol, thank you for caring about our kids. And that just rang true to me because I'm like, seriously, thank you for going around on your evenings and just trying to spread the word so people understand what we're trying to do. So they've been going around. I think Carol and Nancy have hit up the PTO meetings. We did the Boylston Select Board meeting. I believe tomorrow is the Berlin FinCom meeting. I think things went really well for the Boylston Select Board meeting. Mike was there, Jess was there. Dan was there, we had Paul there, Janelle, we had a great team of people there. I think it was received well. You know, I think that when we go out and we're talking in the community about the budget, we're hearing lots of positive things from parents. So it'll be interesting to see, get some formal feedback, which we'll discuss at our next subcommittee meeting from the Berlin and the Boylston FinCom. But so far, informal feedback that I've received has just been positive about the district improvement plan and the budget and the reasons why we're asking for, you know, like you said, some of these necessities that we need for our children in the schools. So we talked about that. Carol already went into, we brought up the cell phone service at Tohoto, and Carol kind of went into that with Paul. We left at our last subcommittee meeting, which was, I think, January 20th. We left it that Carol and Nancy were going to look into the repeaters, which they did. Paul said it was going to be $200,000. So, you know, I think from there, we gotta kind of figure out what do we do. And then the last thing we talked about, let's see, was, oh yes, so I believe Nancy is going to discuss this. Julie and I heard a presentation from Lauren Staples, who is, she is the food services director, the nutrition director for our district. And she made a plea to the school committee and to Nancy to get her staff some raises. So Nancy, they put together, and I'm not going to get into too much detail. Nancy's gonna talk about this. They put together some benchmarking data, and we're paying less than surrounding communities. So it was, Julie and I talked about it, and I don't want to speak for Julie, but I'll speak for the subcommittee. I think we agreed unanimously between the two of us that we want to do something for these people. And I will say I subbed today at Tohoto in the lunchroom, and it's hard work. And I just was doing the registers, but those women at Tohoto, they're very hard workers. So I wholeheartedly support giving them a little bit more. And I believe that was it. Julie, did you want to add anything?
No, just, yeah, I absolutely about full support for the raise. I mean, my 14-year-old son makes the same at Market Basket as these people that work in our school serving the food. So, and we're not going to retain anybody if we, you know, have such a low threshold.
Yep. And they did an unbelievable job. Like, they're clean, and I'm like, they're like all these moms, and I'm like, you know, this is great. We have these great workers. Like you said, we don't want to lose them. They're doing a great job. So, and they know the kids. So I totally agree. I think we need to do whatever it takes to retain these people and keep them in our district. And if that's giving them a raise, then yes, let's do it. And that is it. That's all I got. We're meeting again Friday after to kind of debrief and get some more details on the feedback, the formal feedback from FinCom. And we'll try to, you know, based on our meeting tonight, when we get into the budget, I think, you know, we'll try to discuss if we need to make any changes before our next meeting, which is when we vote.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Megan. Student Success and Technology, Jess and I met with Paul and Carol, and actually Chris Keefe from the Berlin board was there as well. We talked about a couple things on the technology side, most of which has been discussed tonight, about cell phones, antennas, repeaters. But Paul also brought up the idea of the website, where the current provider, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but the current provider was bought by another company. So we'll be transitioning over to their platform, should be starting this spring. Along with that is going to come work to get all of our forms online. And John, I know we spoke at the parent meeting. Yes, your forms are online, and available to be printed and filled out by hand and then submitted back into you. So we're working there, baby steps, but it's getting there. The idea is that so parents, when they sign up for kindergarten, when they have other forms that go home for school, permission slips, all that stuff is all done electronically. Electronic signature, filled out right on the website, however that has to be. But we're talking about moving there, and that's the direction we're heading in. So we talked about that during the committee meeting. We talked about, of course, the budget and how the school committee is going to go about promoting the budget to not just parents, but when we met with the Berlin Link group, they brought up the very important idea that, you don't have to convince parents. Parents agree with what we want to do. It's the other voters in town that we need to talk to and get out in front of. So Chris actually gave us a lot of good ideas on how to do that. Carol took them down, and I know she's already started working on that and started setting appointments. So that's going to be good. We talked about other ideas about promoting, campaigns, print campaigns, flyer campaigns, mailing campaigns, all that stuff still to be decided up in the air. I think the biggest thing we can do is get in front of these groups, either in person. We talked about getting in touch with, I still have not sent the email to Brittany yet over at the cable station, but hopefully we'll be talking to her about some ways that they might be able to help get us out through the channel, if that can be possible, to get Nancy and Carol's presentation out to the largest number of people that it can get out to. So we talked about ideas like that, and we'll be meeting again later this month to continue talking about that and getting that done. So that's the Success and Technology Committee. Lori, do you have an update for policy?
So I'm shutting off my camera because I have really bad Wi-Fi. Just a quick update. We will be meeting our next policy meeting. We will be reviewing policy AC, which is the non-discrimination, as well as policy JIC, which is student discipline. And we will hopefully come to a consensus and be able to present at the next meeting. And that's
All right.
it.
Good. And the evaluation committee, I don't believe you met, so there's probably not an update. Okay. Yeah, you didn't meet, so there's not an update on that one.
Mike, just a
but-
point of clarification.
Yes.
The emails that I got regarding the roof, where, at what point do you want me to talk about that?
Nancy's gonna go over some things in the budget talk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, next on the list is the superintendent's report, which Carol has already provided. So Carol, unless you have something to add, we can go to Nancy.
I'm all set. Thank you, Mike.
All right, Nancy.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start with food services, as Megan briefly mentioned. So I recently benchmarked our food service cafeteria positions against our neighboring towns, and I found that the rates were significantly lower than many other schools. Our hourly rates are lower, ranging from $1.50 to $3.50 amongst all the positions. Since our food service department is run through its own revolving account, we cannot increase these rates to where we would like to, but we're approaching the committee to ask for an increase and to ensure at the same time that we're still breaking even in our revolving account. In your folder, you'll see the results of the benchmarking, along with a recommended increase of 50 cents for all positions. We would also like to propose a bonus for any of the cafeteria workers that started working prior to this school year. The employees have gone above and beyond in helping us through the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the pandemic began, all breakfasts and lunches have been free to our families. Due to this, the volume that has been served in our lunches and breakfasts has increased greatly. And this is all as well the cafeteria has been short-staffed. It's been a difficult task to find employees in this department. This 50 cents increase would take effect in the next payroll. The pay period started on Monday, February 6th, and the increase in total would cost an additional $2,801.62 throughout the remainder of the school year. The bonus that I'm proposing is calculated on a $500 for the employees that work a full day in the kitchen, which is 6 hours a day. And then it is prorated amongst the hours for what the rest of the employees work. So the total amount of the bonus would be $4,070, and that's spread amongst 9 employees. In forecasting this increase, the rates in the bonus would leave approximately $8,000 in the lunch revolving account at the end of this fiscal year. So in your folder, you'll find the new salary grid recommending 50-cent increase, and forecasting out next year with the same amount of employees, hours worked. I gave a slight increase to expenses for inflation. And even with this increase, we should have a break-even position at the end of the school year. A full year increase would be approximately $7,500 for next school year with this increase combined. So that is our proposal for food services. I gave you a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions?
Does anybody have any? I have one, but I'd save it after anybody else goes.
Is there, I mean, do you have like a 3-year plan like that's being thought about in the district? Or I know you said you
So,
didn't want to, we couldn't give
Yeah.
what we wanted.
it's hard to do. We're waiting to see what the USDA proposes for next school year with whether the lunches and breakfasts are going to be free or not. So until we have that information, it's hard to predict. So once we have that, we can absolutely look into doing that. Yeah. The volume is just so significantly different between having breakfast and lunches free versus not, so that you're just looking at everything. It's a whole different ballgame financially.
Just to play the bad guy here, because nobody else wants to, so I'll take it. A couple of meetings ago, back in maybe October, we talked about raises for all different positions throughout the district, like aides, paraprofessionals, things like that. I understand. It's not that I would say no to a raise to the food staff, because feeding that much food to that many hungry kids can only be a challenge. But we're only considering raises for food staff or any other positions. How are we going to handle all that?
So in our subcommittee, we actually I benchmarked the paraprofessional positions, and we reviewed them at one of our subcommittees. So the paraprofessionals were benchmarked to the same exact towns that I benchmarked the food service personnel to. We were above average for our paraprofessional rates when doing that.
Okay.
So my answer would be, here we're below average, paraprofessional, we're above average. So I think, Megan and Julie can obviously jump in, but I think at the time when we reviewed it, we felt comfortable as to where we stood with the paraprofessional rates.
All right. Is this something you need a committee vote on, or is this something the superintendent can handle?
This needs a committee vote.
All right.
Yep.
It
So
didn't-
I was gonna ask, is this something we can vote on tonight?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it didn't make it into business items on the agenda, so I think we should probably not vote on it tonight. Because
Okay.
doesn't
So
give yeah, go ahead.
So I apologize. So if it's not voted on tonight, then we're going to be moving into doing a retro pay type of thing. So
My only concern is that it wasn't on the agenda to vote on it. That's my only concern.
right.
But could one of us just make a motion?
Yeah.
Anybody can make a motion, as far as I'm aware, for anything.
If it's unforeseen,
Anybody can make a motion for
Okay,
anything,
okay.
from what I understand.
So
Yeah.
could one of us make a motion now, or do we have to wait for the 4 votes?
From what I understand, any one of us could make a motion for anything.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to give the cafeteria personnel 50 cent an hour raise effective immediately, Nancy?
Yep, Monday, February 6th.
Monday, February 6th, which would be yesterday. And a $500 bonus for all employees.
Prorated on the hours that they work.
Prorated, yes, on hours worked.
Lori, do you have the language on that motion?
It's all employees, Nancy. We said it was everybody, right?
No, so the bonus is for employees
Who worked,
who not
worked
effective
during-
for employees who start this year. So starting from June 30th beyond.
For food staff employees.
Yes.
Yes,
Personnel.
yes.
So I'd like to make a motion to give a 50 cent an hour raise to all food staff personnel effective February 6th, 2023. And to give a $500 bonus to those food staff personnel that worked for our district prior to June 30th, 2022. Did you get it?
Got that, Lori? All right, that is a
Yep.
motion on the table.
Motion's on the
That is a
table.
motion. That is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Jess, Megan motioned. All right, is there any discussion?
We need to just add to that motion, who works for our district and is still employed in the district.
So is that a motion to amend the motion?
Correct, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll make a motion to amend the motion to add the $500 raise for employees employed prior to June 30th that are currently still employed by the district.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Is there a discussion for that motion? Okay, roll call vote. Megan,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Aye as well. So that motion, which is the amendment, passes.
Awesome.
And motion now is for the actual raise with the amendment. Is there any more discussion on that? Roll call vote. Megan,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
All right, so the motion passes for the raise. If we find out there was any flaw with that motion, I think the committee is happy to get on an emergency call to fix it. All right, thank you, Nancy, for that. The budget update, Nancy?
I have two things in my budget update. The first one I wanted to touch base on is buses, transportation. So I've been informed, the driver we've been waiting on for Berlin Bus 3 has passed and received his CDL license with a student endorsement. He started last week, so it was a test run. He could not work this week, so we're back to doubling up. But I'm being told that he is supposed to be starting permanently next week, if all goes well. So if this, I'm always hesitant to say it because it's just been a long road with transportation, but if this happens, as we hope, we will have every bus in our district with a driver. The only thing that is still the issue is having a substitute driver. So if someone calls in sick, then we don't have a driver and then runs will be doubled. So that's where we stand with transportation at this point in time.
So every route has a bus, every route has a driver for that bus, except in a substitute situation.
That is how it should be as of Monday, from what I am being told by the bus company.
Okay, great. We are going to not hold you to that, but hope for the best.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. One question on buses. So you say all the routes have buses now. I know every day that we see the bus go by, it is not actually the Berlin bus. It's a Framingham bus, I think, right now. Is it the same? Is it the Berlin drivers? Or what's going on with that?
They're all
That affects
using,
the app, right?
huh?
That affects the
So-
app, right? If it's not the actual Berlin buses.
Yeah, well, yes. So that's when the app is faulty because the app doesn't work when you have a substitute bus. I honestly don't know why they mix up the buses. I get told, I don't have an answer for you. I don't get appropriate answers when I ask. It's very difficult. They say it's because it's sub drivers, but now I'm being told there aren't sub drivers, but we still get buses that say Framingham or Assabet or Hamza or.
So a bus showed up today. I should consider myself lucky and move on. Okay,
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
fair enough.
Nancy, I had a quick question
know.
about bus
Yeah.
5 in Boylston. I was under the impression before that he was a substitute, Jeff, but is he now the permanent driver for that bus too, or?
I was told today that all our drivers are permanent.
All right.
That's why I'm very hesitant. I'm not gonna, communication's tough. We're doing the best we can. I keep on them. We speak daily, I ask questions daily.
So you had been holding some invoices back. What's that
I
situation?
still am holding them.
Okay.
So, they haven't been paid since December. And it's on their part. So they sent us the December invoice and they sent us the January invoice. And they sent me some with a little bit of a discount. I keep track of the buses daily, the buses that are doubled, the buses that are late, and I mark them all down, and I went back with my changes. And I followed up 3 times and asked how they're coming along, and they just say they're working on it. So they're still being held.
Okay.
Because I have pretty good data as to
Yeah.
when the buses are doubled, and if the buses are doubled, that's 1 bus, not
Yeah,
2.
I think that's fair.
So, yeah. So they're still held, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Then, are we good with busing before I move on? Sorry.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So I know we got an email today. So Jess reached out let me start with when we were at the Boylston Select Board and we did our presentation. One of the FinCom, we were mentioning how we put the roof on the capital plan. One of the FinCom members threw out something that I think all of us looked a little baffled because we're all new, and said something about, oh, well, that was due because of the structural damage, or something about the structural something of the building. We all kind of like looked at each other like, that's something none of us have heard before. So then we kind of started doing investigating, and Jess was nice enough to kind of start reaching out to people. And she reached out to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, it was a prior interim principal at the time when the addition was built at BES. Is that correct?
Yeah, and a prior central office secretary as well.
Yeah. And so she just sent this out to us. And the feedback from them was, they didn't have tons of information, but what the person could say is that there has always been a roof and gym problem from day one. So after hearing that, and then after hearing what the FinCom representative had to say, it kind of made you think a little more. Maybe this is more than a roofing problem. Maybe this is a structural thing. So I spoke to Dan, who's on here too, who can answer any questions and can speak probably more to this than I can, and asked his opinion as what we should do. I think because you want to be financially fiscal responsible with what we're asking for. And so I think between Dan and I, we discussed about possibly taking the roof off of the capital plan for this fiscal year We have the assessment that we're going to be doing for BES. We got our 3 quotes. We have a vendor, but it's going to take a couple months before that comes back. So there's no way we're going to get the answer to this roofing situation before the budget is approved, and probably before it even goes on May 1st to the town meeting. So we were thinking we take the roof off. We request $10,000 for roofing repairs to get us through the next year. And then when we find out as to where we stand, if it's the roof, we put it into next year's capital plan. If it's a structural issue, that's more of a conversation that we're going to have with the town. So we wanted to bring this up to the committee because we know you're voting on the budget on the 28th of February.
Thanks, Nancy. Does anybody have anything for that?
I do. So Dan, if this is a structural issue, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of us, but what happens if they come back and they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you spend this 1.2 million and resurface this roof, it's, you know, a structural issue. What would our options be at that point?
So when I talked to Habib Architect and one of the people that provided us with a quote for the building assessment, I mentioned the roof was a priority for us. We need to look at the roof. And he said, absolutely, they'll go on the roof, they'll take care of business and look at the structure, the architect design of the building. Basically what they did for us at Berlin Memorial, just go through a whole building assessment and, do the whole structure and see what they're recommending on repairs. My previous district, I had to bring a structural engineer to one of the old middle schools, and it just right out of pocket of the school budget cost us, I believe it was like $6,000. $6,000 we don't have. So that's why when I talked to Nancy, we kind of both agreed, wait till we get the building assessment done. That would give us an idea how the structure of the roof would be. I mean, now, if there is a structural issue, then we're gonna have to talk with the town, select boardman and FinCom, and how we could address that issue.
Does the company that's doing the assessment have a structural engineer on their team, or would that be a separate secondary step after they assess it, if there is a structural issue?
Architects usually have a structural engineer with them.
So the people that are gonna do the assessment? I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
okay. So we wouldn't have to approve then like another $6,000 for a structural engineer. It would be part of.
No, it's all part of the assessment, which we was already give us a proposal for. And
Awesome.
they're the ones that came out with the lowest quote, so they won the bid.
So Mike, do we have to vote on that, or can they just, I think we approved, the subcommittee could approve, right? Do we vote on that? So we just
To
have
accept
to
the bid? You're talking about to accept the bid? for that?
accept the bid, yep,
Yeah, I think we gave the authority to accept the bid, yeah. When we
for the
did that back
35,000.
in- Yeah, I think that was October or September.
Yep.
Remember correctly?
So,
Yeah,
so you guys
Oh.
can just go run with that, or does that have to get? Okay, we don't need to vote at our subcommittee meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, and so
Yeah.
when do you think they'll start?
They're looking for spring.
Right,
yeah,
Good.
this whole roof situation gets weirder and weirder.
Well, we
Um,
haven't, sorry to interrupt, but we haven't hit spring yet. We haven't
Yeah.
hit the rainy season. So,
Right,
I'm just
I mean,
boots on, head up to the roof and do what I can.
yeah, well, as far as getting it fixed, the feeling I got from that select board meeting was that, they couldn't believe it. Oh, here we go again with this roof. Like, this is just a thing. Regardless of who's responsible for fixing it, what the problem is, who cares what the problem was? Who cares who's responsible for fixing it? It's a town building, the school's rented from the town. Megan showed me the pictures of students dodging rain buckets in the library, in the gym, and in classrooms. I mean, that can't be in a top.
Yeah.
That can't be in any district, let alone a district that we claim is a good district. That can't be. You can't have kids dodging. How you doing, Marie? How you doing? It's just, it blows my mind that we have year after year, we have students dodging rain buckets in their classroom in gym class. I mean, I've played dodgeball, but I've never played dodge the bucket, you know? It's a safety issue. If that bucket spills over and the kid slips on it, it's a safety issue. Kid cracks his head. I mean, it's going to cost a lot more than 1.2 million in situations like that. Who knows what's going on up in the ceiling and the rafters and the roof with water. I mean, I take care of buildings all the time. Mold and water and leaky roofs and mold. Like, yeah, everybody, Lori, you're in real estate. Everybody loves the mold word when it comes to, and to hear from different committees and saying, oh, this can't be a problem because we just spent money however many years ago to fix it. Well, you patch a water bubble over here, the water just travels somewhere else. You got to fix the problem where the water is. You don't, you know, it's so, but it sounds like we're getting more information. Jess reached out and got that information. That one phrase, what was it from day one, I think was the exact quote, sheds a little light on something, right? So we've been putting duct tape and bubble gum up there for however many years, and something needs to happen, because 7-year-olds running around a bucket of water in gym class is not an ideal situation.
So I'm curious, I know that there was like a 3 million totally new roof versus the 1.3 resurfaced roof. I mean, would that 3 million new roof potentially address any structural issues? Like, is it, I guess, how much of a new roof does that 3 million cover?
So the new roof will just be basically just tearing out the whole top roof. You've got a big hole in the ceiling and doing it all over again. Rather with the surface, you're just taking off the top layer, basically the rubber layer, leaving the wood, the frame there, just doing that over.
And so, I mean, I don't know if any of us couldn't speak to this because we weren't here, but like, you know, the selectman mentioned that this roof has been repaired many times, and it sounds like we're just patching it along the way, and that's what they're fearing, that this 1.3 resurfacing would be just following in that pattern rather than addressing the structural issue.
But I kind of agree with you on that, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just worried if it's like a structural issue, like, oh, they put the addition on and the way they built the addition makes it so the roof is never gonna not leak. Like, what does that mean? We need to put a new building in to get the leak to, I mean, that's scary. But yeah, I think the way you're approaching this, Nancy and Dan, is the right way. We got to get this facility study, and we just gotta, you know, don't worry, I'll be doing it. We got to keep pushing this through to these towns. And, you know, if my kids are going to be in that building, I'm going to keep pushing. I know Jess is right there with me. So, you know, yes, Mike, mold, I think about that all the time. I see the little piece coming down. I mean, I think somebody said they did a mold test, so I think we're in the clear on that as of now, but yeah.
You never know,
just gotta
Megan.
keep
Raise
pushing
the
it.
roof. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, all right. So well, that's great. We have somebody coming in hopefully in the spring. And yeah, Dan, I'm sorry about this rainy season. I know, I think about every time we get these crazy rains.
Yeah.
I fear, because we get the wind up here too. I live right near the school. The wind is awful over here, so that doesn't help either. So yeah, I worry every time we get weather like that, and especially like when the kids are actually in school and that's happening. It's one thing if it's happening overnight and then whatever is going to leak in and then you come to the mess in the morning, but if there's actually kids in the building, that's scary. So thank you for taking that on. And I think we're heading in the right direction, but we'll see. We'll take it from after, we'll see what the facility study says and go from there. And yeah, we'll have to push this back to the towns.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
Yeah.
And
You're
Dan,
welcome.
thank you for checking this out.
No problem.
Nancy, I think we've got some CO2 stuff to talk about, which is also
Oh.
a nice real estate topic in danger.
So we have two things. So we received, I'm going to start with, we received an email from a parent asking if we have ever done a radon test in any of our buildings. From what we can tell, Dan looked, I looked, we have not. It is not required by law, but it is recommended. If we were to proceed, it would be approximately $1,500 per school. So we're bringing this forward to the committee to see what you would like to do with this.
Sorry to interrupt, Tohoto will be
Yeah.
a little bit more because of square footage wise.
Thank you, Dan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, please, thank you.
I mean, that's a long-term safety, environmental, our
Yeah.
children, so I would wholeheartedly support that.
We
So
would
this is-
probably, at this point in time, due to the cost, have to take the funds from school choice. Just because it's unbudgeted funds, if we did it at this point in time.
So Nancy, this is just to test for radon. What happens? I can tell you right now, every house in Compass Circle has a radon mitigation system because there is radon. So Boylston Elementary is a stone's throw from here. So let's say that test comes back that there is radon in the building, then what? We have to install a radon mitigation system, or is that not mandatory, or what goes from there? Because those are pricey, aren't they?
We would have to install them, yes.
And I'm guessing there's no piping or any of that laid for that, so it's gonna be a lot of, yeah.
It would
I mean,
be
we
a
gotta
new
do this. I
install.
can't believe some of this stuff has been overlooked for all these years.
Yeah, yeah.
What would the turnaround time be on a radon test? I'm curious, like any hope
So I spoke
for
with the-
February 28th?
No, well, I spoke with the radon tester yesterday. She's gonna provide us with a quote. I gave her the floor plans for the 3 schools. I'm just waiting to hear back from her, hopefully tomorrow.
What if we waited to see that quote and maybe talk to, where does this fall under? Does this fall under building department,
Department of Health.
Department of Health? Why don't we get him in here to talk about the history that they know with the schools and whether or not this was done, why it was or wasn't done in the past,
Mhm.
what their opinion is on it before, only because, 1,500 per school, what do we, almost $5,000, big, more for Tohoto because of square footage. $5,000 here, $9,000 over there, 500 over here, 3,500 here. All of a sudden, we've got a bigger budget in spending this month than we're asking for next year. So it's a little over the top.
Yeah.
But I think we should probably get some more information on this particular one. It's not required. It's not a law. It's just a question from a parent. Why don't we ask the Board of Health maybe if they'll come and speak to us or give us a statement or something, see what they know before we commit money to it, especially since we don't have a quote yet.
So the only information I got from the mass.gov website is that the Massachusetts Department of Public Health recommends
Yeah,
that it should be tested.
yeah.
Doesn't say that they have to require us to do it. It's
Okay.
just a recommendation.
And that was the radon is also a CO2 issue, yeah?
Yeah, so
But-
CO2 has been addressed. So when we had the boilers inspected, they came back with a recommendation also. There are no carbon monoxide detectors installed in the boiler rooms. NFPA requires carbon monoxide detectors with 2 independent and reliable power supply. So we went out, we bought power with battery backup carbon monoxide detectors for the boiler rooms. So those have been addressed.
So that's
Job.
Okay, cool.
So just to kind of just throw out there, initially, we thought it was going to be a much more expensive project. And when we had our crisis meeting, I can't remember his name, the highway guy from Berlin, Dan, Fred?
Yeah.
Fred, yeah, he kind of touched base with Dan because he came across the same situation. And with them both talking, realized a better way to go about it financially.
Yeah.
So it was nice to have that communication,
Yeah, it was
it's nice to kind of get everybody in a room sometimes because it really helps
Yeah.
to come up with a,
That's kind of why I think we should do the same with the Board of Health on the radon stuff. Just see what they have
Yeah.
to say first before we, you solved it with a couple of $50 parts from Home Depot, right? Like, yeah,
Right,
Maybe
Yeah.
there's another solution we don't know of.
Yep.
right. Yep,
Awesome.
great.
Okay.
Should we, so will that be an agenda item for next time to try to get the Board of Health?
Yeah, why don't we add that? We'll try to get either someone to attend, or they might not be able to attend, but maybe ask the question to them and get a recommendation from them.
Would that
Want
be
me to
possible
talk
at
to
a,
Boylston or Jess? Do you know, isn't it Dennis Costello?
he's one on the committee, yeah. I mean, would a subcommittee be able to address that? So it's not put off till March?
We could, yeah, that would fit with student success.
I'm just
I
thinking,
actually-
you know, if it might potentially be a higher item, you know, I know we have to approve a budget February 28th. I mean, I don't know. It would be good forethought to think of that in that realm.
I'll reach out. I know one of the guys that covers Berlin. I'll reach out to him.
Jess, will you be able to reach out, or Laurie, do you know the Boylston? I mean, I had to work with him when we were all doing our septics. He was like part-time. He works for multiple other towns. So it was like really difficult to work with him. I ended up working with his admin a lot.
I'll be nice to them, Megan. I got a good relationship with them.
I was
It's
nice.
third right up on the wall over there.
I was trying to be nice. No, Jess, so you're good with that? All right.
Yeah, I'll reach
Yeah.
out to them. We'll reach out to them. And at our next subcommittee, Jess, I'll talk to you tomorrow about when we can get our next meeting on the books. Cool. Okay, Nancy, anything else?
One more thing, I just wanted to let everyone know, tomorrow night, we have our Berlin FinCom meeting. It's at 7:30. And we will be presenting our fiscal year 24 budget to them. So if you'd like to come, we'll be there.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I will try to make that.
Yeah, Nancy, I'll be there too.
Oh, wonderful, thank you, great.
All right.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Dan. Well, I guess John might as well go now.
The enthusiasm is overwhelming, Mr. Topman.
Hey, we're making pretty good time here, John. I think we're doing okay.
And really quickly before I start, Nancy, it's Berlin, like Merlin. You'll get in trouble otherwise. I'm going to try to share my screen because, of course, as always, if Paul will let me share my screen.
It should be set if you do share screen, it's set so that one person
It
can,
says it's disabled.
probably because you didn't join properly. Let me see.
While Paul's fiddling with technology, we just wanted to take a few minutes. We did Ames web testing at mid-year. We wanted to kind of bring the school committee up to speed on what we're seeing mid-year. Ames web is the tool that we use. It's like a dipstick. It looks reasonably quickly at student progress 3 times a year. It is not all inclusive. It's, you know, for the little kids, it's a series of 1-minute tests. Older kids, it's like 25 or 30 minutes. But it gives us enough to know that we might have a problem here, we might have a problem there. And then the challenge is to dig deeper. So if we see that a child's reading scores are dipping or are below where we want them to be, then we start to look at what some of the barriers might be. Is it a phonics problem? Is it a comprehension problem? Is it a vocabulary problem? And then we have tutors, thank goodness, who work with those kids and try to identify the areas of need to catch them up. And we've been really successful at that for a variety of situations. I'm stalling.
Yeah, can you try again, John? And if not, I'm gonna
Yes!
make.
Hooray! All right, so can you see a blue screen that says mid-year benchmark testing? Oh wait, now can you? A thumbs up from somebody. All right. All right, so real quick, I'm gonna run through this. I wanna be respectful of people's time while keep you informed. Let me go over here. So I mentioned Ames Web. Ames Web, it's a monitoring tool. We look to identify gaps quickly and address them quickly. It doesn't measure specific skills, especially deeper skills like vocabulary or comprehension. These are our results school-wide for early literacy or reading. This is all grades, each school. And you know that my goal is to get kids above the 60th percentile. That's a national average. If average is 50, we would like our students to be at 60. Because if we're at 50, then half the kids are below and half the kids are above. So 60 is kind of our percentile target. Stephanie Woodward, the school, actually the district reading literacy specialist, calls it the super green range. This graph, as I mentioned here, it's a little misleading. They look reasonably good. The low scores in kindergarten and first grade for literacy kind of mask really strong scores for especially like third, fourth, and fifth grade. And in the report I sent all of you, you can see the graphs for every single grade. So that's reading. We also look at, because we look at achievement and we look at growth, and this is growth. And in growth, we look at the 50th percentile. Kids who are growing, the rate of growth is above that, are making what we call catch-up growth. They're growing faster than the average so that they can make up some ground that they've lost or further improve on their work. And you can see in both schools, 2/3 of the kids are above that 50th percentile. So those are good numbers. This is math. The graph looks very similar. Percentage of kids, it's 2/3 basically of kids in the super green. The math scores were a little more even from grade to grade, although again, those younger kids struggled a little more than some of our older students. Same thing with growth. More than 2/3 of our students have a growth rate above the 50th percentile. One of the things we do, and somebody had asked me about this, so I thought I would mention it here. We use Ames Web to identify kids who get tutoring support, tier 2 interventions. And so I just wanted to break down what happened to those kids. We identified kids in Berlin and Boylston. In Berlin, we identified 36 students for tier 2 in literacy. Of that group of 36, 16 graduated, meaning they no longer needed that intervention. That's 44% of the kids that we initially identified. In math, we identified 41 students. Of that group, 19 or 46% graduated from service. The issue that they had been remediated. Doesn't mean that they're home free. We continue to monitor. That's why we do Ames Web 3 times a year. But that's where they are. Over our friends in Boylston, 56 students were identified for tier 2 intervention in literacy. Of that group, 14 graduated. That's only 25%, kind of a different crew there. In math, on the other hand, 43 kids were identified. And at mid-year, 21 of those kids, that's almost half, 49%, graduated from service. And so hats off to our tutors and to Mrs. Woodward and Mr. Flournoy for the incredible job that they're doing in both schools. Any questions about that part? Because I know you've all memorized my fabulous report. Okay. Oral reading fluency. You've heard me talk about
John.
oral reading. Oh, I'm sorry.
Real quick.
Yeah.
These numbers are just for this year, September to now.
Yes.
So there's still close to half a year for these kids, for more kids to graduate. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's a kind of it's an ongoing thing. Some kids graduate and we bring new kids in.
Mhm.
Those kids graduate. It's a cycle. Kids
Okay.
who stay in that group for a while, then we look at what other services do they need.
Okay.
It's an early indicator for like, do we need to look at special education, for example? Okay. Oral reading fluency is something you've heard me talk about. It's the ability to read text accurately, quickly, and with expression. It builds stamina for reading lengthy or complex texts, and it serves as a bridge between word recognition and comprehension. Fluent readers spend less time on decoding and more time on comprehension. Anybody who's listened to a little kid stumble through reading, the dog went to the store. That's where they start. And our job is to, through practice and repetition and training, to move them to a more fluent status. Because if they're spending all their time struggling to sound out words, they really don't have the ability to think about what they're reading. Reading fluency is also a great way to identify some reading challenges, including early identification of kids with dyslexia. We used to have to wait till 3rd grade, basically until kids failed, before we'd start to talk about dyslexia. Looking hard at oral reading fluency gives us an ability to do that much, much earlier. So I've got a couple of longitudinal graphs for you. And again, I've got one of these for every grade in the report, but I picked these 2 out just to kind of give you some comparison. This is our current grade 3. You know, these are the kids that I want 80% of them to meet or exceed the expectation on the MCAS test. The graph you're looking at for grade 3, and then again for grade 5, are the percentage of our students in each school whose oral reading fluency is below the 25th percentile. When Stephanie Woodward and I talk about these kids, we talk about them being a year behind in reading skills. So you can see over time what happens, and you'll see it with the grade 5 thing too. They start out really high. So this is, for this graph, this is kindergarten first grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, because we don't do oral reading fluency in kindergarten. And you can see, you know, they both start out high because it's a skill that they have to earn. And over time, they tend to come down. So what started in Boylston, they were 38% in 1st grade. It's 28% now, which is an improvement. In Berlin, it was 29% when they started. We're down to 17. So it's growth. The goal is like 10. There are kids who, for a variety of reasons, speech issues, eye tracking issues, or other special education issues, who are never going to be super fluent readers. They can be effective readers, but they're not going to be able to read out loud as fluently as we would like. You're probably talking 10% of the population. So you can see both schools are above that. And that's this kind of stuff we monitor. That's one of the things we look at when we decide who needs services. This is 5th grade. And you can see this goes way back. This is what their 2nd grade scores is where we start. You can also see the gap. If you look all the way to the left-hand side, you see the big bump there, the blue line for Berlin. That's when they returned from COVID. And so you can see the kind of the learning loss there. But again, for them, what happened is it dropped right back down. So those struggling students caught up, most of them, pretty quickly. In Berlin, we're running right now with this grade around 10 or 11%, which is kind of where I want to be. Boylston, a little bit higher. I have no idea what happened in that 31% there at the end. I'm kind of thinking that's a testing glitch somehow. But it's there, and we will keep track of that. I know that's something that Stephanie and Dawn Marie and the teachers in Boylston are working on. So that's kind of it in the moment where we are in literacy and in math at mid-year. Does anybody have any questions? Or want to go home?
The reports, sorry. The reports sent home were nice and comprehensive, and so it was easier to understand what you were reading. So I do appreciate those.
Hey, John, you mentioned the goal is for 10%, no more than 10% to be under that, was it 25th percentile?
Under that 25th percentile, yeah.
At what point? At this point right now?
Every single time.
All right.
That would be my goal. You know me, Mike. I'm aspirational.
You know me.
But you know what? By the end of 3rd grade,
yeah,
the people that we have working for us are fabulous.
Yeah.
By the end of 3rd grade, I think we can get kids there. Part of what we'll be talking about as we move forward is how do we train teachers to be more effective with struggling students. We are really good at kids who are going to be good readers. Those kids are very secure, they're very solid, they're supported at home, they love to read. It's wonderful to be a part of that. There are things that we're learning now about how to help struggling readers that we have to help our teachers learn. And that's the next step for us, that kind of meaningful, directed professional development to give them the tools that they need to get kids where they need to be.
Well, that was going to be my question. What do you need from the school committee and from the towns and from the voters? in this
Carol's going to smack
district plan,
me
this
now.
budget plan to make that happen, to get that under 10%. I mean, because you're not there. I mean, you're not there.
No,
Data's
we're not
there.
there.
You're
And
not
we can be.
Mhm.
And that's, and you've heard me say this 1,000 times. 80%, 90%, whatever, meets or exceeds by the end of the third grade. What's happened, Mike, is that teachers, and if you really want to get depressed and you don't want to read the book about the kids on the beach, listen to the podcast Soul the Story, which is an NPR reporter. Her name is Emily Hanford, who talks about the whole reading or balanced literacy movement over the last 30 years and the deep flaws in it. What happened is that most of our teachers, probably almost all of our teachers, were trained essentially that if you give kids books at their level and let them read and enjoy it, they'll magically learn to read. It'll be fabulous. And there's all these beautiful pictures with children and flashlights and the book of their choice. And it seems so easy. The problem is it's not true. Learning to read for kids is really hard work. So to retrain teachers to do a better job in those, especially those early years, where it's all about phonics and phonemic awareness and orthographic mapping, we need to retrain them. And so when you ask me what I need from school committee, I need more professional development time. I need to have the time to sit with teachers, well, not me, but somebody who knows what they're talking about, like Mrs. Woodward, who can sit with them and walk them through. These are more effective strategies.
And if I can add to that part of what John's saying, we ask teachers all the time to differentiate in their classrooms and to take in information and then make thoughtful plans to respond to how students are doing. And that's essentially what John is talking about when we think about professional development for teachers. We want to be able to take this data and look at it mid-year and then say, what do we need to change? What do we need to do differently? What do our teachers need to be able to move these kids forward? And that's really hard to do when you always have all of the professional development in one part of the year, and then you're in this part of the year and you don't have an opportunity to do that with teachers.
Other questions that won't get me in trouble with the superintendent?
Yeah. No, I think what Dawn Marie just said, I mean, that's good. The calendar discussions are coming up, right? For next year, and for the schools. And so if we forget, remind us.
Oh, I will.
I just put
And
a note to
just
myself
wanted to show you that
make
too,
sure
John.
we
Hey,
put
you
that
got it,
on
all
the
right. But did you read it, Mr. Top?
It's on the top of the next to read list.
Okay.
Got a week of travel coming up. I might bring it with me.
There you go.
Mike, we do
Excellent.
want to
Does
talk
anybody have
about the,
No, go
we
ahead,
do
Carol.
want to talk about the calendar at the next meeting and discuss having professional development days look different. I had a chance to talk to both the elementary principals and coaches in line with what John's talking about. And I also had, Sally and I were talking to the union reps over in Tohoto today, and surprisingly, they're all on the same page with what they would like to propose for the budget. So that's a discussion. I wrote it down, make sure we put that on for the agenda next month, at least for a first read.
Yeah, Carol, Dawn, John, I think you'll find from this committee, what Dawn Marie mentioned about wanting to be able to change direction if needed, if data supports that mid-year. One of our biggest frustrations, I think, is with the slowness of that change usually. So anything to speed that up, I think we would be supportive of that.
This is a I keep telling Carol, this is a 4-year project.
Mhm.
It will take that long. So I keep telling Carol, 4 years, Carol, we gotta say 4 years. And I
Before
think I
you
haven't
actually
told
keep-
her yet, but
Okay. Anybody else have anything for them? Anything, anybody to add? All right, so we'll move on to business items. Couple things here for, I think I mentioned this earlier with the Nature's Classroom. We do have a couple policies on field trips. IJOA covers field trips, JJH covers student travel when it comes to overnight. So that's why the school committee is voting on some of these field trips, because they do require overnight travel. So the first one up, these will all be roll call votes. So Lori, you're taking notes there. Just remember that. First one up, could I have a motion to approve the New York City field trip with Mr. Minahan's class on March 29th, 2023?
So moved.
Is that Jess?
Yep.
Second.
Jess, Megan. So we'll go, let's see, Megan. Sorry,
Aye.
any discussion. There was paperwork submitted in the drive for you to look at in regard to this. All good. Megan,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
am I as well? Passes. May I have a motion? So hold on now. This next one is that radon and CO2 detectors that we talked about already. Sounds like we do not need the CO2 detectors. That's already been taken care of. And the radon tests, I think we're gonna look for more information on that. So can I have a motion to, what do we need to do? Table this one? Yeah, so I'm seeing some yeses out there. So a motion to table approving hardwired CO2 detectors and radon tests for all 3 schools.
So moved.
That's Megan. The
I'll
second,
second.
Lori,
Lori.
discussion. Megan,
Aye.
Jess,
No.
no,
Mm-mm.
Julie,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
I am an aye. That motion to table this passes 4-1. That doesn't mean we're not doing it. It only means that we're gonna go get more information before we come back to it. Okay, next up is motion to approve the Nature's Classroom field trip.
So moved.
moved.
Lori.
Julie, I heard second.
Yep.
Second. I heard Julie move that. Is there a second?
Second. Jessica.
Jess. All right. Megan,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. That motion passes. Motion to accept a donation for $250 for the class of 2023 and a $250 donation towards the Go Buckets for Alice Tahanto.
Moved.
Megan? Is there a second?
Second. Lori.
Lori? Discussion. Does anybody have some information on this they want to share?
Is that Alice training? Is that?
What is a Go Bucket for Alice Tahanto? Who can answer that?
The Go buckets are, buckets that are similar to the ones you see at Home Depot that would contain supplies in them in case somebody was locked down in a room for a long period of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions from anyone? Who do we know who these donations are from? Do we want to recognize them or are they anonymous? Sounds like they are anonymous. Thank you very much. Megan,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. The motion passes. Can we have a motion to approve the lead nurse job description?
So moved.
Megan,
Second, Jessica.
Jess, Any discussion, questions?
We have a nurse starting at BES, right?
Yeah, yes, we have a new school nurse and nurse leader, Lisa Lamoureux, who started at Boylston Elementary School yesterday.
So is this,
Sorry, go Jess, you ask.
no, is it a separate position? So it's on top of the 3 nurses and the substitute? So that's a 5th.
It's the nurse leader position is a list of additional responsibilities for one of our existing school nurses. And it happens to be the Boylston Elementary School nurse that has that position.
Currently or forever?
It has changed over the years. There's a long history of that position sort of moving around. But this school year, it has fallen with the Boylston Elementary School nurse. That's just sort of way that the skill sets and the interest and the availability has worked out.
So we're essentially approving a position for somebody that's already hired.
It's a set of responsibilities that has been in place for a long time.
Okay.
Yes,
got it.
It's a matter of solidifying a written, there hasn't always been a written description of those responsibilities or, a common set of those responsibilities to refer to. So we're getting that done and making sure that that's available and that we're all referencing the same points.
And is that with a stipend that's associated with those additional responsibilities or?
Yes.
Now we are fully staffed for nurses.
Yes, we are.
Okay, good.
Anyone else? All right, Megan,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion passes.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's good. It's documentation in place. The more of that, the better. It's good stuff. Number 6, Lori mentioned that already. We're taking that back to the policy subcommittee meeting. And number 7, can I have a motion to approve policy JFBB, school choice? Megan? Second?
Second.
Lori?
Yep.
Discussion.
I just want to clarify, it's the one that says for this year, we are doing school choice. I know there was a little snafu last time and I just want to make sure that was the one I read that was linked in the drive, but I just want to confirm that's what we're voting on.
So just to explain, hopefully my Wi-Fi it's really spotty. That's why my picture is off. The one that we were going to vote on last time said that every single year we had to determine whether we were going to do school choice or not. This one says that we do it every year so long as we haven't changed our policy and we have the spots available. That's the difference.
So we don't have to
It was the
vote-
wrong policy last
Mhm.
time.
Okay. So we don't have to vote every May 1st or anything like that. It's just,
There would still be a vote to approve any students that the principals or superintendent would suggest, or any spots, I guess, that they would suggest. It's just the 2 different policies. One says you always got to consider it. One says basically you don't consider it unless there's a situation that comes up, I believe. If I'm
Well said, Mike.
Yeah. So I think that this came up because there was a change in the MASC policy that we needed to adopt. And then in looking at those, we realized there were 2 different policies based on what direction the district wants to go with school choice. So there was just some confusion at the last meeting and the wrong one got placed out there. So we didn't vote on it. So this one is just to accept the new language in it, but it says basically we would consider school choice, but we still have to vote on it as to whether or not we're going to accept new students. Anything else on it? Any other questions? Megan?
Aye.
Jess?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. That's the last business item, last vote. Next up, anybody have any future agenda items that we haven't discussed yet?
I just want to hope that the radon gets put on the subcommittee soon.
Yep.
Just gonna say that, Jess, because I am also concerned about the radon, especially at Boylston, just because I know literally every house. All the houses that are in that hill where the land, because it's from the land, right? It comes up from the ground.
The
So whatever
Yeah,
this,
I believe, right?
we're on gravel here. So I guess something about, I had a test and thank God that all these houses have mitigation. They have the pipe work done. So I know all this stuff about radon now. But yes, we had a test and our level was very, very high. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing what the Board of Health says, because maybe in larger buildings with that type of ventilation or the HVAC system, we all are also new houses with sealed windows. So I think that, yeah, if we can get that on the agenda sooner than later, I'd love to hear what the Board of Health, even if it's like an email or something, if they're unable to come to the meeting, I just think it's important to get their take. There's gotta be a reason.
All right.
Like, Mike, can I add something? Not
Yeah.
about the radon, but I agree with that as well, Megan and Jess. Can we bring back to the subcommittees too? It probably crosses all of them. The cell phone use by students at Tohoto. And if there's anything we can be exploring there to help the school manage
Yeah.
this beast.
And yeah, your additional devices. Yeah, I think policy would be a good fit for that. We'll
Yeah.
review what we currently have. We'll talk with Carol and everybody. Lori, policy meeting. We'll
Yeah,
discuss that.
and when I'm horrible with names, but when our student representative was talking about the upper grades being isolated, not going to the parties and not talking to each other within the classrooms, I wonder if it goes back to the cell phones, like in those silent rooms, when they say they talk, do the devices come out and then people just, don't talk to each other?
Jess, there's actually research that points exactly to that.
Julie, I also added to our agenda for Friday to talk about Yonder.
Love it. Thanks,
So,
Meg.
I mean, I don't know how much it costs or anything like that, but I
That's
think,
great.
yeah, policy should look at the device, but maybe we could talk about exploring Yonder and
Yeah.
um,
That's awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. Anybody else have anything? Anyone on the call, not a committee member, want to ask us to discuss anything later, or we'll leave that to Carol to figure out at our next meeting. All right. Okay, so that concludes that. We're going to go into an executive session. We're going to go in discuss contract matters with non-union personnel, Carol Costello. So we're going to do a roll call vote to go into executive session. We are not going to return to open session. So can I have a motion to enter executive session to discuss contract matters with non-union personnel, Carol Costello, and not to return to open session?
So moved.
I heard Lori.
Second,
and,
Julie.
Julie, the second. All right, Megan,
Aye.
Jess,
Sorry, yes.
yeah, Julie,
Aye.
Lori. And I'm an aye as well, so that passes. So we will enter executive session. That concludes this open portion of the meeting. Our next meeting is February
Right.
28th. That's the budget hearing. Then March 7th and March 21st if needed.